By the end of this episode, listeners will stop feeling paralyzed by AI and start seeing how to be able to use it as a creative partner, not a creative threat. You'll walk away with real world ways to protect your voice, preserve your value, and move forward with confidence. Welcome to the Strategic Thinkers Podcast. This is an episode that has been one in the works for quite a while. Melody Ann is someone that I met a few years ago, such a pleasant, wonderful person. And I was just trying to find ways to be able to collaborate and partner with her. And we ended up reconnecting, and it was such a great conversation. And she was so insightful with some of the things that we're looking at now that I said, well, we can't just make this one episode. I'd love to be able to make it a series. So with this, we're going to be having a conversation about AI. And I've covered AI from the technical side, but I think one of the things that has been kind of glossed over is AI from the creative side. So this is going to be a conversation that I'm really looking forward to being able to have. And with that, I want to say, Melody, and welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, Sean, thank you so much. Yes, we met quite a long time ago, and
Mhm.
uh, I love the fact that we've kept up and that we, kept in touch and keep catching up. I think that's wonderful, and that's the beauty of networking, isn't it? So, and thank you so much for having me on the show today. I really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to a creatively artificial intelligence conversation.
Well, I appreciate it. Yes. So I'll be mindful of your time and I will jump straight into the promise that I make for the audience. By the end of this episode, listeners will stop feeling paralyzed by AI and start seeing how to be able to use it as a creative partner, not a creative threat. You'll walk away with real world ways to protect your voice, preserve your value, and move forward with confidence. I thought this was going to be really important because I know one of the conversations that we had was we're talking about all the different industries and all the different people that have been affected by AI. And our conversation was something where we talked about where things were versus where they're at now, and it really led into a lot of different things that I thought would be interesting. I know one of the things that we talked about, and I will age myself by talking about the encyclopedias. And I know you had mentioned the encyclopedias. I know growing up, those were the things that I had as a younger child to be able to reference. And we went from that to actually getting access to the internet, and now we're up to the point of AI. So, would you like to be able to talk about the encyclopedia story?
Sure. Yes. So growing up, we had encyclopedias and a library at school with books. So I grew up in the country. I didn't grow up in a city. So we had encyclopedias at home. We had a library of books at school. That was it. There was no internet. There was nothing. And I remember at home always pulling out the encyclopedias. H was my favorite because it was a human being. And
Mm,
the H, I'd open it up and they had these transparent pages that you could lay down. And the first one was the skeleton of the human. And then the next one were like the tendons and,
hmm
all that. And page by page, you could lay a page down. You were slowly building a human. So that's how I learned about humans. That was my biology education until I hit high school and started doing high school biology. But I loved it, right? I loved learning. I loved books. I still love physical books, but I also see that the world moves forward and I'm interested in moving forward with it. And so I don't have encyclopedias in my house anymore, Sean. And my kids did not grow up with them either.
I appreciate that. I still remember the encyclopedia salespeople going around and asking, "Do you have an encyclopedia?" and selling the importance of it. I will also segue into there was encyclopedias, and then fast forward. Geez, I can't even think about how many years it was, but I remember when computers first came out, and then it was when we started to get the dial-up internet, and it was something where you had that screeching sound where, in most cases, it's like nails across the chalkboard, and it was something that would drive people crazy. But for those trying to dial into the internet, it was such a great sound because it means you're actually connected. I think it's something where a lot of people take it for granted that are younger that didn't have to deal with that part. But there was a point when you would try to dial into the internet and you had to wait your turn. Sometimes you try to dial in, it's like the line's busy or you can't get in, and you would have to just try another number until you could hear that sound. And it meant, okay, you're about to be opened up to the rest of the world. And now we've gone from that to AI, and it's 24/7, 365. There was one thing that you said that really stood out to me. And I said, this is one of the reasons why I think we should actually have this conversation, and not just a conversation, but a series of conversations around it. And the phrase was, you don't catch up, you move forward. which to me was so powerful because there are a lot of people that feel like, okay, well, I don't want to use AI yet. It's moving at such a pace. I got to figure out how to catch up. And you don't catch up, move forward. Really summed it up on you don't really get to go back. You have to pick up where it is now and start to leverage it. And it's become easier and easier. And there's more and more things that they're adding into it.
Exactly. I'll never forget when I was in high school. I'm gonna age myself again. I was picking courses one year, and we had a computer science course. It was one of those computer science courses where you had a stack of 100 or 1,000 cards, and you had to like color in or poke out the holes, and then it would run it through this giant mainframe that my school had. We were lucky to
Yes.
have one. It's very advanced computer science at the time, Sean. And all my friends were signing up for computer science. And so
Hmm.
I wanted to sign up for computer science. So my brother, who's a few years ahead of me and was in university, first year kind of university, he said, don't take computer science. That is so old. And I said, what do you mean? This is like cutting edge, right? And he's like, no, that's old. Take typing. I'm like, why would I want to take typing?
Right.
That's like,
Right.
nobody takes typing. Right? Like,
Right.
that's a silly course to take. He said, no, trust me. Everyone in the future is going to need how to type really. If you can learn how to type really quickly, forget that. By the time you get out of high school, it won't even count anymore. And he was
Yeah.
right. He was absolutely right. So I used to watch my friends walking around with these, 1,000 cards and like dropping them, but they hadn't numbered them. And then
Hmm.
staying up all night trying to, and I had this fear of missing out. How am I ever going to catch up? I never caught up because I didn't have to. When I got out of high
Nice.
school, I went to university and those cards were gone. They were completely gone. So I never had to catch up. I just moved forward. Wherever we were at that time, he said, "Don't worry, when you get to uni, it's going to
Hmm.
be completely different. So don't even worry about that." And that's where I learned, thanks to my older brother, you don't catch up, you move forward. Because whatever's happening right now, if you're not ready for it, that's fine. When you are ready, you don't start at the back. You start where everyone else is and you learn what is it now because it's going to be different at that point in time than it
Hmm.
is now when you don't want to join. And if you're ready to join now, great. Join now and learn with it. That's fine too. But there's this whole idea of I'm missing out and I have to catch up and it's going to take me a long time to catch up. No, you don't catch up, you move forward. History class, that's different, right?
Hmm.
You want to learn history, but that's a whole different reason. Technology is not like history. It's not like math. If you're ready to start now, let's figure out where we are now and get you started. That's the beauty of technology.
I love that. It's so apropos because it's something where when I go to have a conversation with someone and they're like, "Oh, well, I feel like I'm so far behind," and it's really one of those things of that's the whole point of it. So if you did feel like you got left behind, it is something where it'll quickly be able to catch you up. I actually looked because I know we had the conversation, and I was saying I think we're at a point where it's getting closer and closer to being updated. So I looked, and Claude is at a learning level of static information of January 2025. So it knows everything up until January 25. T is, I'm going to say June 2024. So the reason that I'm bringing this up is it segues into one of the other things that I wanted to be able to talk about, which is AI doesn't necessarily replace your creativity. What it does is it gives you the opportunity to be able to identify things that you can outsource to, but it's never really in a position to be able to replace you. Now, even though it's up to January 2025, we're in October now. Think about all the things that have happened in between January and October. And unless you're dropping the links in, unless you're giving it the extra information that it needs, it goes back to the saying, and it's a little crude, but garbage in, garbage out. So if you're not giving it the information that it needs, you're not going to be able to get the output that you need. So there are a lot of creative people like copywriters that are feeling like their jobs or their careers are in jeopardy. I think there's an opportunity for them to really be able to shift and start looking at new ways to be able to leverage AI. And not look at it so much as something that's trying to replace them, but something that actually can streamline the work that they actually get to do. And that was one of the things that made me so excited about having a conversation with you. With that, what would you say to creatives who feel like their work is being devalued by AI tools?
Yeah. I'm going to say something you just said, garbage in, garbage out, right? And so if everything on the internet, all the blogs and everything on the internet is in AI, but it has a lot of misinformation, it has a lot of really bad writing examples, it has a lot of really bad stuff happening. And so if you are a good copywriter, you can look at what AI spits out and you can see like this is not good. We have editors on my team and
Mm,
they edit books and sometimes they get a book to edit for an evaluation and they say to me this is all AI. This is like it's so obvious. It's such awful writing. There's no way that the human who did this in ChatGPT could write worse. Right?
yeah,
Just at this point.
yeah,
Now, maybe that will change. Maybe AI will have at some point a way to write really well. But AI is really good as a partner for a creative, but not as the creative, at least not yet. I don't know about the future, but I can only talk about what's now. So if you have an idea or a client comes to you and says, I have an idea, we want to do a web page or an ad or whatever it happens to be, if they went to AI and they did that and they came to you and they paid you and you did it, I guarantee that the human written material is going to be better than the ChatGPT material. Now, what if though, Sean? What if?
mhm,
What if the copywriter was using AI and saying, okay, you are good at, there are things you are good at. I'm going to get AI to do the things that AI is good at. And then I'm going to turn that into an even better
yeah,
copy for the website. What if, as a copywriter, you could be using AI, or maybe the the client gives you this is what we got out of AI. Maybe your job now is give me your AI copy and I'll make it better.
yes,
And what if that's how you advertise yourself now? Give me your AI copy and I'll make it better. Instead of saying, "Oh, AI is a threat to me," it's like, "Well, how
mhm.
do I incorporate AI into my world so that I provide an even better service to my clients?" I think that's a really good question to ask yourself if you are a creative and you are
Mhm.
afraid of AI.
No, I love it. One of the things that comes to mind when we had the conversation and then listening to you say it here is uh I think there's a difference between some people that just kind of go into fields and they're not necessarily experts at it. I was someone that fell in love with the process. Once I identified that there was a process and it was something that was repeatable and it was cyclical, then it was something where it's like, okay, well, if this is a rinse and repeat type of situation, then I want to understand what it looks like. So for me, when I start having conversations with copywriters, and admittedly, I was someone that when AI came out and people started saying, oh, well, I can use it for this, I can use it for that, I was like, my issue with it is it's lowered the entry point for entrepreneurship. It's made it feel like there's an easy button, but you'd have to be an entrepreneur to understand that it doesn't get easy. It doesn't get easier. It actually gets more complicated. If you look at the failure rate, you'll see that there's different factors that go into it. So, my concern was that it was making people think that it was easier than it was to be able to go into.
Yes.
I will say one of the beauties of AI and everything that it's been doing is now, if you understand the process and you understand the workflow, you can just move further ahead or further back into the workflow and find places to be able to make it work. Very much what you said. There are web designers that will say, "Well, I need to get content for the website." I can't tell you how many times when I used to build websites for people, I would get all of my work done, and then we would get to the part where I said, "Okay, well now I need the content," and they would say, "Oh," and just "Oh." And I'm like, you do realize you're gonna need to come up with that. So I went from just doing the website to basically building out the business model because it's like the content actually has to make sense for the website. And then it also has to make sense for the audience. And then you have to figure out how they're going to be able to turn things into actual transactions and all the rest of that. AI now allows them to be able to go in and say, okay, well, I need to have content. And AI will start to ask you the questions that you need to be able to answer so that when you go to a web designer, then you can say, okay, well, here's what I want. And it allows you to be able to get to that point faster. And I can almost guarantee that the prices of these web designs actually can go down because they don't have to charge you for the time it takes for them to come up with the content.
Yeah.
Same thing with the copywriters. If you can give them, there's several ways that you can go about it. Like if you give them prompts so that they can go in and basically get interviewed and then come back and give you copy, then you go from being someone that had to pull all of that information out of them to someone that can help them organize their thoughts and figure out how to be able to convey it in a better way. I think there are definitely advantages to being able to leverage AI. One thing I will say, and I noticed more recently, is I can't speak for all of the platforms, but Claude, somewhere along the lines, more so recently, they added in a level of discernment. So it's started to add in a certain level of pushback. So where it was always agreeable before, ChatGPT and a lot of them were always agreeable. It was just like, sure, you can do that. Sure, you can do that. Now I realize as a strategist, I'll go in and I'll brainstorm and it starts to kick back things and says, well, I don't know if you can do that. And I honestly found myself going back and forth with it, arguing, going, you don't know what you're talking about. Yes, I can do that. And it got to the point where I was like, you're a real wet blanket. Like you're just trying to just roll off everything that I want to be able to do. And it's because it can see the picture of all the things up to a certain point. So where I said for Claude, it's up to January 2025. For ChatGPT, I'm going to say it's June 2024. If it's only going by the strategies and things that were fed into it up to that point, and you're not giving it links and things as a frame of reference, it's going to be basing it on old information, old strategies, old tactics, and things that you can't necessarily leverage the same way. So, as much as it is something that people can leverage to be able to get a starting point, I don't think it's the end point. And I think that's where we have that conversation of garbage in, garbage out.
Yes.
You can put in like if you have a copywriter, if you have someone that can give you the information so that you start with enough information to get something good back out, great content in, great content out. So they can either move themselves to the very beginning and help them create prompts to help people get to the point that they want to be able to get to. I basically say there are some people that are more transactional and some people that are more nurturing. I would consider you someone that's more nurturing, as opposed to some of the people that are more transactional. Transactional is in the point of I want to be able to give you the thing and then go on about my business, as opposed to someone that's nurturing that is more of an educator and wants to make sure that they're empowering the person. So if there's someone that's transactional, create the prompts. Give the people the prompts and allow them to be able to come up with the content and everything that they need from there. And then maybe if you want, you can do the copy editing, but you can get your money on the front end, as opposed to someone that's more nurturing and say, okay, gather your thoughts, come back to me, and I'll help organize those thoughts and make sure that you get to where you want to be able to go and whatever your definition of success is. So I think there's so much room for people. And the better you understand the workflow, the more you can find out the places where you can add value based on your personality and the type of business that you want to be able to
Yeah.
have.
Yeah. And for creatives, when you're copywriting, when we're writing for someone else, we want to capture their language. We
Hmm.
don't want to capture the language of all the 500 blogs on the same topic. We want to
Yes.
capture their language and their way of thinking and having meetings. I'm often on a call with a client just asking questions and probing and being curious. And then we take that and AI transcribes it for us. And then AI, we can put that into AI and we can say, what language is being used here? And of course, we have humans that also go over it, but AI can help us extract the language that our clients are using so that we can, when we write, we sound like our clients. Because if you just use ChatGPT, you sound like everyone else. But if you're using your language, but AI is helping you with that by transcribing, by creating lists of terms that you should use in a blog post
Hmm.
you're writing for a client, then you're doing something extra, right? You're not just throwing something into ChatGPT and getting something out. Again, garbage in, garbage out. You are using good resource material and you will get a better result doing that. So the job of copywriter, as you say, it might change, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to go away because you still need that human oversight.
Absolutely. I'll say from a strategist standpoint, you absolutely, in some cases, at least from the strategist standpoint, I'm not having a conversation with with my clients about using their voice unless we're talking about their value proposition, where they're talking strictly about their business. A lot of times the conversation that I have to remind them of is it's not about you, it's about your audience. So we're not using your language, we're not using my language, we're using the audience's language, because the way that I explain it to people is branding is basically gathering all of the information that you learn about the audience, compiling everything between the audience and yourself, and then marketing is repeating it back to them and asking them if you got it right. So you'll know that you got it right when you start getting a proper response. If you're listening and you realize, well, when I explain it this way, this is how my understanding of it. When I explain it this way, this is their understanding of it. We had a conversation where I was telling you, I said I had to simplify my content because somebody was saying, it's like, yeah, I mean, you're talking at a different level than some of the levels that people read at, or they may have an understanding of, a comprehension level. Per your advice, I actually put it into a Claude and I asked, and it said, yeah, you're talking at like a college and university level, as opposed to, I want to say, what is the average, sixth, seventh grade level? Um,
Yeah, depending on what you're doing, I think, yeah, if you look at what level the newspapers are, that
Hmm.
can help you. It's like, I
Yeah.
want my people to be able to read this newspaper, and then finding out what level that is, that's what the grade you should write at, right? But you're right, Sean, your writing is so much more complex than most people want to deal with.
I apologize for interrupting the episode, but I wanted to share something with you. Every entrepreneur has natural competitive advantages that they're not fully utilizing. The problem is, we're often blind to our own strengths because they feel effortless to us. What comes natural to you may be incredibly difficult to your competitors. What you take for granted might be exactly what sets you apart in the marketplace. My Unfair Business Advantage quiz helps you identify the hidden competitive advantages that give you a clear strategy for leveraging them. It's a quick 10-minute assessment that could transform how you position yourself and your business. Check the link in the description and let's get you back to the episode. Yeah, I had to learn that. And it, as many times as I had people explain it to me, for me in the back of my mind, I was like, it feels like a slight if I try to, bring it, slow it down, but so much because it's almost, it feels condescending, like I'm talking down to them. But what I had to remind myself is there are the people when I think about reading, when I read something, I'm reading it in my voice in my head. So that's the part that I always had to remind myself to say, if I was reading it to them, then that might be something different. But when they're reading it in their head, it has to make sense to them because if it's not something that they would naturally say, then that's where the disconnect is going to come in and they can't connect with it. And that's why I said, as a strategist, I have to constantly remind people that it's not about you. It's about actually making sure that you're using their language to make sure that they understand it. And guilty, it's a lesson that I not only teach other people, but I constantly have to remind myself. And so much so that when we're talking about AI, I've had to create some custom AI agents to be able to vet it to make sure that I'm not doing that. Because I will always kind of revert back to, what, this is my understanding of it. And I have to kind of go in and say, you know what, am I still talking from my level of understanding or am I making sure that it's something that someone else can understand? Because everybody's starting point is different.
Yeah, and side note, it's not about being condescending. It's never about being condescending. So you have a level of expertise that your reader does not have. So that's one. Secondly, your reader is busy. They're not just
Yeah.
reading what you're writing, they're looking
Yeah.
after their kids or their parents, they have a job, they're hungry, they didn't go to the gym, they haven't had enough coffee, they like, and on and on and on, right? So you are writing to someone who doesn't have your level of expertise, is really busy. They're smart. They're just as intelligent as you are, but they're really really busy and they need to be able to consume the information as quickly as possible and act on it easily so they can move on with their day. And if you make that difficult for them, they won't finish reading it. It's funny, somebody said to me, you write in very simple terms. Didn't you get a degree in linguistics? I says, yes, and that's why I write in simple terms. Because I was taught, you don't it's not about being pompous. It's about being clear and understandable and empathic with where your reader sits at the moment they're interacting with your words. And that's not condensation. That's respect and empathy, right? So
Well, I love that. Again, ladies and gentlemen, this is why I said she is a nurturer. This is why I said that she empowers because that is exactly what it is that I'm talking about. A lot of my experience came from the corporate side and it's very transactional there. They use acronyms, they use all of these things to make themselves feel and sound smarter and to make sure that other people don't pick up on the things that they know because the mindset is when someone else knows it, they copy it, they try to take it, they try to improve upon it and then you can end up being on the wrong end of that. So, I know where my training came from and why it is a blessing and a curse and it is retraining myself to be more like Melody Ann and actually explain it in a way that makes more sense. So there is a definite difference between the corporate side and then the more public side and making sure that people understand it in a way that they can actually do something with it, as opposed to the only people that truly understand are the people in the room that are deciding things for other people.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so with that, I want to go back to a conversation that we had. Conversation beats complexity. You don't need to master prompts. You need to master clarity, and that made for a great segue into this because I know one of the things that we talked about, and I tried to go back, but I realized one of my first interactions with ChatGPT was a prompt. So it wasn't actually me doing my own search. It was someone saying, "Here's all the stuff that you need to enter in." And this is how you can get the output that you're supposed to be able to get out. But you were actually able to trace it back to your first chat GPT prompt, and and then the coaching week redesign that you've been using. Right?
Yes, so I do coaching weeks with my clients. It's great to have courses and whatnot, but sometimes it's good just to have a week where you get to come and talk to the coach and make some good progress. And so I do coaching weeks with my clients. And I was doing a coaching week, and it was the same coaching week I'd done several times over. My business is cyclical, so every January I do this very similar coaching week. But I've been doing something very same, and I wanted to just like, how can I shake this up for my clients, for myself? I want to keep myself engaged as well.
Yes.
And so I gave ChatGPT all the information, who my clients were, who I was, what I did. I uploaded my Word document and like, this is what my coaching week looks like. I want to do something a little different. Like I like the main structure, but I need something fresh. I'm feeling run out of ideas at the moment. And ChatGPT came back and said, here's some ideas for you. And it was fabulous
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes you're not, you've worked on this thing so much and you want something fresh, but you're feeling a little bit of out of ideas. And helped me restructure it, refresh it. And interestingly enough, I know, I say I do it for my clients, which is true. But if you've ever been a teacher and you've taught the same course over and over and over again for 10 years, after a while, the teacher needs it refreshed for
Yes.
themselves. And
Absolutely.
so when I refresh my material, it isn't just for my clients, it's for me because I want to stay really engaged. And so, yeah, I let ChatGPT help me redesign a coaching week. And so it became a brainstorming partner. Of
Mm.
course, it didn't tell me what to do. It gave me ideas. And then I actually restructured it based on what I did. So I always know at the end of each coaching week, I know what worked and what didn't.
Mm-hmm.
ChatGPT didn't know that. So then I would take what worked and I would keep that. I would take ideas from ChatGPT and replace them with things that I didn't think were working well. Because of course I always want to improve as well. So that was my first ChatGPT prompt. So really kind of a research assistant, right? The helper. It helped me take what I had and refresh it in a way that I was re-engaged and that because it would be new clients going through this, my new clients were even more engaged than other clients had been in the previous years, just continuing to upgrade. That was my first prompt.
Very nice. I want to unpack that a little bit more because it resonated with me in a way that I got a very early introduction into branding and marketing and all the rest of that as a child. Whereas some people got it in their 20s, I got a very early introduction into it. And I think the thing that allows it to still always feel new to me are the conversations that I get to have with other people because their perspectives and their experiences are the things that say, you know what? I've been looking at it my way for so long, and I've been looking at it from different angles and all of these different things. But I think that's one of the best parts now is that it's allowing new people to come in with fresh perspectives. And those fresh perspectives are what allows you to start looking at things from 360 degrees as opposed to just the view that we've been able to look at it from. So I love using the AIs for brainstorming because it can give me new perspectives that I may not get on my own, along with having conversations with other people. I wanted to make sure that I actually circle back because I knew it, but I also want to hear a little bit more about it. Your coaching week redesign. I mean, we're going to talk about everything else, but like, I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I remember exactly all the details of the redesign because this is a
No,
while.
no, no. I just mean for what you're doing now, like how you're working with different people and having and kind of walking them through it. Like you said, it's something where you're kind of helping them say, like, you know what, there's a lot of different things that we can do, but let's just take a moment and help you get set and start figuring out what it is that you want to be able to do. Because I think a lot of people will just go into AI and say, okay, well, I got to get this project done. I got to this, I got to this, I got to this. But helping people get centered and get clear on what it is, again, kind of goes back to garbage in, garbage out. What I heard in that is that you're actually helping people kind of get centered, get clear on what it is that they want to be able to get done so that they can actually get some of the things that they want out of it.
Yeah, and you said something just a minute ago, you said, "And then I talk to other people." And that's actually really important. It's not me and ChatGPT and no one else. I have a writer, an editor on staff. We have conversations once a week about the projects we're working on. We give each other feedback on things. And so it's not just, me and ChatGPT hiding in a corner. It's one more member of the team. And so something else I do every year is I do a survey with my clients. Every year I send out a survey with all my clients, everyone on my email list. What did you enjoy this year? What worked for you? Where did I not help you that you needed help? How can I
Mm.
change that? Like I do that every year. And so when I'm coming up to my planning, I have what I've done in the past. I have the response of people who've worked with me in the past or
Mhm.
not and why. Maybe they're on my email list. They've never worked with me. It's like, you've never done a workshop I'm interested in. It's like, great. What would you be interested in? So I get
Right.
all that information, talk to my team and ChatGPT. And so that sounds like a lot, but here's the thing. Again, you can put all of that into AI and say,
Mhm.
organize all of this. Don't add any
Yeah.
information.
Yeah.
Don't go out and look for anything. Just take what I'm giving you and organize it all. And that helps ground me. So in the past, taking that much information and going through it all
Mhm.
manually and trying to understand the needs of my clients, that took me a long time, Sean.
Yeah.
Like a
Yeah.
long
Yeah.
time. But
Yeah.
now that I can add in, a super fast computer to take all my information and sort it out, I'm really doing for myself what I do with my clients. I'm
Mhm.
helping them that coaching week. It's about helping them understand exactly, you know, why are you where you are right now as a creative? What is it that you want in the end? And what's the path that will get you there? Right. And that's kind of that first coaching week, right? That's
Mhm.
what we do. And yeah, absolutely. AI can play a role in that. In fact, AI can help you do it so much faster and get a good grounding, right? A really good
Yeah.
ground. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I churn out content so much faster than I ever could before. I don't really even have to work at it. My mind is constantly running. I'm an overthinker. So it's something where I have to get it out of my head in order to be able to sleep. So it's great for me because I can just kind of drop things in and say, okay, let's just table that. And then I can come back to it later and things like that. One of the other things that I know that you referenced, and this is something that when we start talking about the different use cases, was being able to use it as a research assistant. And you kind of just spoke to it in a way. One of the things that I know that I used to use LinkedIn for was to research people when I was going to go on meetings on the corporate side. Like, okay, well, we're going to have this call, we're going to have this meeting. Let me go research the person so I know a little bit more about them and things like that. I can say from doing networking calls and having a lot of sales calls, there are a lot of people that are not leveraging AI the way that they could to be able to prepare for calls. And I think that's something where they could be missing the mark. And one of the things that you spoke to was having AI actually do that research for you and then come back and kind of give you a one pager so that you can prep for the calls and you don't go in blind, which makes it so that you can make the most of that actual time. So, I think you mentioned summarizing websites, LinkedIn bios.
Yeah.
I would love to hear more about some of the ways that you've been leveraging it.
Yeah. So I started just putting, I've met this person at a networking event. I have a meeting with them next week and I want to understand them. I want to know who this person is that I'm meeting and how could we work together? If we did, how might we work together? And so I started popping into AI their LinkedIn and their website or any kind of information I found. And I would just say, please summarize. And then AI would spit out, well, this person likes this person does this person, I would get information. What I have now, which is far more complex, is I've built my own AI. So
Nice.
now what I do is I put all the links and information into my own AI and I say, tell me about this person and how we might work together. And
Mm,
it will spit out, this person would be a perfect client. This person would be a perfect partner. This
nice.
person would, yeah. So I have it far more refined now. So, and I know I can hear some people out there. Yeah, but that's not very human to like go and get AI to do research. It's like you're
Mm,
stalking these people or something. It's like, look, I am genuinely interested in human beings. And I'm genuinely interested in each person I speak to. What do they like? What do they do? What are they interested in? And I have plenty of meetings each week. And if every time I had a meeting with someone, I spent 3 hours reading their entire website, they're looking at all of their LinkedIn, going back and looking at the past month's worth of posts on their social medias to really understand them, I wouldn't have time for clients. And so, some in the past before AI, sometimes I would get to a meeting feeling unprepared, like I hadn't had enough time to really look at their LinkedIn and look at their website because I was so busy. But now with AI, even if it's just a simple, put their LinkedIn and their website into AI and say, please tell me about this person. What are they like?
Hmm.
What are their interests? You're going to have a far better conversation because you actually care about their interests. It's not, so yeah, I can hear people like that's cheating. It's like no, it's not. It's being able to go into more depth the way I've always wanted to, but have never had the time to do because I'm a busy entrepreneur. And so I love that. And eventually I loved it so much I built my own AI. And now it'll spit out a lot more, not just, it'll actually give suggestions based on, so I've built it, I've put in ideas like this is how I like to partner. These are all the ways I like to partner. And so now that the AI I built understands that, it doesn't just take that and give a summary of the person, it starts connecting things for me. You should talk to them about this because there's an
Right.
opportunity here. You should talk to them about this. And it makes a huge difference, Sean. A huge, huge difference. We get into things faster, we find better ways to partner. If
Hmm.
it's not a match, that's great. That's fine. We can have our 20-minute coffee and really enjoy each other. And the first time we had coffee, I don't think we had in our minds, in 2 years we're going to do this podcast, right? And so if somebody comes back and I don't see a connection, I still have the coffee with them. And I still, I'm still interested in everything they're interested in because I like people. And you never know where it's going to go. And
You
that's a
don't.
beautiful thing, right?
You don't. I love it. It's mirroring a lot of the things that I have actually created for myself as well. I would say it's not cheating; it's caring because there are some nuanced things that are buried within content that if you're just trying to rush through, you could easily miss. But the fact that AI can just comb through it so much faster, I will actually take it back to one of the things that you were saying earlier. It's the understanding of AI can tell you a certain amount of things, but it's the context that you add to it that actually gives it value. So it will be able to read a lot of content and say, well, this is what my impression of it is. One of the things that I did is I created something that I'm constantly like, I'm always trying to learn. So I do a lot of watching of YouTube podcasts, webinars, all these different experts, because again, I like seeing it from different angles. I believe we all serve as examples in life, sometimes of what to do, sometimes of what not to do. So my brother used to say, if the only way you can truly be able to have perspective is to be able to take it all in, good, bad, and indifferent, and then kind of parse everything and figure out what parts of that are things that align with who you are and what you want, and then the things that don't, you just get rid of the rest of it. So I think it's really important for people to understand, and this kind of goes back to the promise of you. There's so many different use cases for it. Even if you don't see yourself, you could be a plumber and say, well, I'm a plumber. That it has nothing to do with any of the stuff that I'm doing. It does though. Like if you can actually prep for something and learn more about that business when you go in, you can understand why that business has specific needs and why there's certain things. Like all of those different nuances are things that it can give you information, and then you add the context in to say, well, this is why it matters to me. So where I'll watch YouTube videos and the first thing I do is I'll drop a transcript in and I'll say, okay, give me your takeaways. And then I watch the actual episode and I say, okay, here's my takeaways. When I do a side by side comparison, it's drastically different because it's listening for certain things. But what I give it on the back end is like, no, this is why this was relevant to me. And by the time I'm done, I'm able to kind of merge those two together. And I get up. This is why I don't run out of content
Yeah.
because I'm able to find all kind of things to say, okay, well, I love that they said this. I don't want to repeat what they said. I want to take my experiences and be able to say, based on what I heard here, this is what my experience was with it. I know I watched something on paid ads and these guys were just talking about it like it was so easy. I was so triggered. I had to text some friends. I was like, dude, I'm like 11 minutes in. I'm hot right now because they were just making it sound so easy. And I'm like, I've spent 30 years in paid and advertising to know how much money people can burn through. And the way that they made it sound, there was one point where they said, oh, well, yeah, there's just like these three boxes, but now AI takes care of all of that for you. And I was like, you mean demographics, psychographics, and all the targeting information that you need to be able to know to go, I can't believe you just skipped over that like that. So that I have a whole folder from just that one podcast alone where it's like 10 different things where I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna have to go into that and be able to explain because now we're in a point where it's easy for a lot of people to talk about things, but if they don't add the context, then people will end up losing some of it. So I think it's really important to understand. Yes, you can go to the websites. Yes, you can do all of these things, and it may feel like cheating, But what it's really doing is giving you enough information for you to be able to kind of add your own bits into it and make it your own. And I think that's where it's not something that's limited just for creative people. There's so many different people that can use it for so many different ways. I think there's a lot more to it than people may think. And if you can kind of take a step back and think about it from that perspective, then there's a use case for it for everyone. I have a friend, he was actually on the podcast. We were talking about it from the tech side. He used it to come up with his gym routine and figure out like his calorie intake, his caloric intake, and all the rest of these things. There's just so many use cases. It's the limit is really your imagination. And once you figure out that it can do all of these things, then it's a matter of just putting the boundaries around it to say, like you said, I don't want you to add anything extra in. I want you to just take what it is that I'm giving you and just give me a synopsis based on that. And then I'll add in all of my time, all of my context and everything else.
Yeah.
So
I think you said
I'll
something
get off
really
my
important.
soapbox.
I think you said something really important. You know, you watched a video and you made the points that you thought were important. You put the transcript into AI. It told you what it thought was important, and those two lists didn't match up. That says a lot right there about humans versus AI. So, you know, trusting AI to choose what is important for you can be quite dangerous. Telling AI what is important to you and then asking AI to make a good list of that. Or, you know, I've asked AI, you know, I'd like to read a book on, you know, give me 10 books, you know, like
Mhm.
asking, you know, telling it what is important and then asking for something. That's different. What you said there was so important. What I thought was important and what ChatGPT thought was important was very different. And same goes for people who are looking for clients and clients think they should be using AI. Well, maybe they should be using both because
Yes.
together we may have different perspectives and we may build something even better together.
Thank you for not allowing me to just gloss over that because that is a takeaway that I would want people to be able to get. And that's what makes you a great guest because the next question I was going to ask you is what's one thing a listener could do or try today, even if they feel overwhelmed by tech? And uh, I think that kind of serves as a lead in.
Yeah, I think that if you're listening today and this has helped you become curious, you know, what is one thing you can do? Pick one very simple thing. Go to ChatGPT and let's say your doctor said you needed more iron. Go to ChatGPT and say, what are the top 10 highest, most dense iron foods? Or
Hmm.
say, I have a meeting with this person, give them the LinkedIn, give me a summary of this. Just do one very low risk thing. Just do one very simple thing. Maybe go to AI and say, you know, this is what I do.
Hmm.
You know, name 4 markets that might be interested in what I do.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
that, just something really simple. But of course, not everything ChatGPT says is true.
Yes.
Just like your Uncle Harry's not always telling the truth,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So again, you are the human and you need to verify things. But just take one simple thing and ask one simple question. That's it. I've given
Absolutely.
3 examples. I hope that's helpful.
Absolutely. I believe that it is. It has so many use cases. It's really just something where if you want to learn about something, tell it where you're at and say, what parts am I missing? One of the things that I try to highlight to people is there are so many blind spots in life that, we have based on our experiences and AI can actually fill in the context for that. But very much what you said, I do not take it as gospel when it gives me information. I will ask the source. I will check the information because it has given me information and said, well, all you have to do is this. And I'm like, no, that's not true. And then I have to explain what people are actually like. So that's where I go back to is based on dated information. And that dated information may be based on something where it got all of that information from people that were in one specific mindset or wherever it got it from, it's basing it on that. But when you have to look at what's the difference between like going with the YouTube thing, what it would give me is what its understanding of people is. And my thing is, no, here's actually how people actually think. And this is what I know about people based on doing market research and conversations and all these other things. Once I give it the context, it's like, oh, so AI will have its aha moments the same way we would have our aha moments. And once you give it that context, then it changes the whole conversation and then the output becomes so much better. So when people say, well, AI outputs all sound generic. It's because they never gave it context for it to be able to fine tune it so that it doesn't sound like everybody else. It just took whatever they gave it, and then AI said, okay, well, here's what you can do. If you never question it, if you never give it any nuance, then you're never going to get any additional information. So I love that you have spoken about, like, you know what? It's one thing to give it information, it's another thing to not think about how to be able to customize it and personalize it to yourself, because that's what's going to allow you to be able to get these end results that if you just take what it gives you and you just post it, yes, you're going to sound like 100 other people because everybody's doing the same thing, and the only thing that really changes is the name at the top, the name at the bottom, and a couple little pieces in between, because that's the little bit of extra context that you gave it. I would add to what you said and say, have it interview you, have it ask you some questions, start to get answers to questions, because I think sometimes there's a saying, if you don't know the answers because you're not asking the right questions. If you have it ask you questions and you realize that you can't answer that question, then it's probably something that you may want to give more thought to. Or now you've identified something that is a spot that you can actually fill in. So if you've got weaknesses, it can turn those into strengths
Yeah.
if you have the time to be able to do that. So there's so many different ways to be able to use it. I have come to appreciate it on a much different level. But I do realize that there are people that use it as a crutch. And we did have a conversation where there are the people that have the creative mind, and they say, well, I have the creative mind, so I don't necessarily need it for creativity. That's fine. Use it for the administrative stuff, the operations things. If you are not someone that feels like you're a very creative person, it can help expand your perspective in a way that allows you to be more creative than you would be on a regular day. And then you can start to find ways to be able to do more things on your own. The only thing that I would caution, and I believe you've covered that, is make sure that the output and the thing that you put out there is you.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of times I have conversations with people and I can read the content and I can read the stuff that they're putting out. And then I go to have a conversation with them and realize nowhere in that was any of that you, because you're not using the same language. It's not the same tone. If I ask you follow-up questions, there's just holes. And that is going to be something that leaves you exposed. And it is something where credibility is really hard to be able to kind of get back. Your reputation is really hard to get back. So don't put yourself in a position where it's going to be compromised, because you see a lot of these gurus with the easy button that says, oh, yeah, just give it this prompt and it'll be able to give you something back on the back end. You actually have to understand the information that you're getting. So, as much as you hear me talk about like going on YouTube and I'll watch something, I also said what I do is I customize it to my experiences. So, I've heard people use quotes and stories and things like that. And then when you ask follow up questions, it's not their story. So, they can't answer any of the follow up questions. They can't give any context to it because they heard it somewhere. That's the only caveat that I would add to it, to say, have it ask you questions.
Yes.
I can guarantee you that there are some experiences that you have that nobody else has, and it'll help you find those and help you find a way to be able to turn that into a much more interesting conversation. And that's something that you can actually get from it that will empower you in more ways that you may think of, especially for those introverts out there. I'm an introvert. I love having conversations, but I also know that there's a cap to how much I can operate with people, because at the end of the day, I'm exhausted. So, yeah, I mean, just have it ask you those questions. When you're done, like when I'm doing it through AI, when I hit a wall, I can get up from the computer. It's not like I'm in the middle of a conversation and I realize, oh boy, yeah, I'm on E right now. And you may still be fascinated, but like, I can't hold up this conversation
Yeah.
much longer.
Yeah. And I think, we probably, I don't know how much time we have, but that's a really good conversation to have. How
Mm,
to interact with AI. I actually think that's a really good conversation to have. How do you start a conversation? How do you keep it on track? How do because I hear these people come out with these strange looking, it looks like computer code.
mhm.
This is the prompt you use. I think there's a better way, but maybe that's a whole new conversation we can have next time.
We absolutely can. That is part of the series that we're going to be covering, as far as making sure that people understand. This one was really just about making people feel more at ease about being able to use AI and understand that there are so many use cases for it. Um, my mother, she's a senior now. Where I used to send her to YouTube, now I can send her to AI, and I would tell her to, just go on YouTube and watch this video, and it'll show you how to be able to do things. My mother got to the point where she was like, oh yeah, I replaced my hard drive. I was doing this, I was doing that. I was like, look at you. So like now AI is another version of that. It allows you to be able to have more ways to be able to identify things. And I don't want to go off script, but there was a conversation I remember having with someone, and she said that there was a stat that said in somewhere down south, I want to say it was Florida, whenever there's hurricanes, there were certain Pop Tarts that sold better than the other Pop Tarts. And they realized that when they sold, I want to say it was cherry sold better than grape and some of the other flavors. So they stocked up whenever they knew a hurricane was coming, and they would keep that in the stores. And then when it went away, then they would go back to adding in those other things. Like, it's so much information in there and that can be found. Like, look for stats, ask for backup to be able to confirm these things. But there's information for analytics. There's all of these different things that you can be able to pull from. Have it ask, don't just ask it questions, have it ask you questions, because a lot of the information that is giving you, it's based on information that it got from other people. So why not have it get it from the source and have it be able to come back to you and say, you know what? Actually, what you just said is way more fascinating than the things that you were looking up. And that's the conversations that I love being able to have with it, where it brings up stories that I have no reason to think anything about, but it ends up going back into content because it'll ask me questions. I'm like, yeah, I mean, unless someone asks me about it, I have no reason to think anything about it because it's my experiences, and I don't find myself fascinating. I find other people fascinating. So have it ask you those questions. You would be surprised some of the output that you may get from it.
Yeah, great points.
What I would ask is, would you say is stopping most people from even trying AI? Is it overwhelm? Is it fear of it? I want to make sure that, like, we cover the promise. I just want to make sure that we're kind of rounding it off with that, because there may still be those objections, and if we can cover some of those, then I think we'll not only fulfill the promise, but we may actually get some people to take action.
Yeah, I think mostly it's fear. I know
Mm,
that in today's world, a lot of people are overwhelmed, just overwhelmed by everything that's happening around them, all the things they have to do, all the responsibilities. So I think overwhelm is part of it because
mm,
when you're looking at AI, you're like, oh, something new to learn, right? And that can feel overwhelming. But I actually think the biggest obstacle is fear.
mm.
Will it make me dumb? Will it take my job? Will it, it's like when the printing press first came out or the first car came out, there's fear around, what is this big change happening and can I handle it? Humans actually, we don't like change. We're much like cats in that way, right? Don't change my world. I'm comfortable, thank you.
Guilty, guilty, yes.
Right? So I think fear of change is a huge piece of it. Just that fear of change.
Mm,
And this, change happens a lot faster than it used to. There's a long time between when I got my first color TV and, the internet. And now we've gone
right.
from internet to AI to, so yeah, we're afraid of change. I think it's fear of change. So how do you deal with that? Well, you just do one little thing. So one thing I always say is, be curious. Be
Yes.
curious. Just be curious. I wonder what that could do. I wonder what would happen if I wonder. Just be curious and try one little thing, one tiny prompt. Don't even have to use it. Just try one.
Hmm.
That's it. And we've given
Love it.
several examples today. So one of those might, try one of those.
Love it. Yeah, I will say definitely fear. One of the things that I will say is think of all of the questions that you have in your head that you're scared to say out loud. That's what AI is for. Like, you don't have to worry about someone saying that's a stupid question. AI is not going to tell you it's a stupid question. So you can ask it all the stupid questions that you want to be able to ask and get the answers to it, or at least something in the ballpark that will either confirm, yes, don't say that to anybody else, or maybe you should ask somebody else that. So there's a wealth of reasons why you could use it. And I just wanted to make sure that we had a conversation that made people feel more comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Because, if we look in some people's browser history, we will find all the questions that they went to try to search for answers to. AI can actually crawl the whole internet and find those answers faster than you can. And it can actually give you more context. And then what you get from that from there allows you to be able to do whatever you want to be able to do with it from there. So definitely the fear. I'm not someone that likes change, but so much because it can be uncomfortable. And I get that. But it's also one of those things of it's not up to us. So once you can kind of settle into that part, then you realize either you're going to make the adjustment or you're going to get left behind. And then you're going to be forced to make the adjustment. And then you don't really have a say in it. So at least control what you can control.
Yeah. Exactly. Love it.
Okay. All right. So with that, I will bring it back to the promise and say by the end of this episode, we said listeners will stop feeling paralyzed by AI's pace and start seeing how to use it as a creative partner, not a creative threat. You'll walk away with real world ways to protect your voice, preserve your value, and move forward with confidence. I hope that we were able to fulfill that promise. And if there was anything where you felt like we missed a mark, where you would like to get more information on, leave it in the comments, and I will make sure that we cover it within the series that we're going to be doing. Melody Ann is such a pleasure, such a joy that I didn't think we would be doing her justice by one episode. So this will be a series, and we're going to come through and talk about different things to be able to cover the full scope and make sure that people walk away with something where they can actually do something with it.
Yeah. Thank you, Sean.
So now with that, I want to make sure that people know how to find you, learn more about what it is that you're doing. It's you time. So let's talk about you. Where can people find you? Tell them more about how they can learn and how you're empowering people and all the wonderful things you're doing.
Yeah. So I help people write nonfiction books, which is, you know, we can talk about the publishing world as well because you know, they say it's under threat. So I help people write nonfiction books. I help people create content that other people want to read, give good reviews to, and recommend to their friends. So if you would like to, would you like support in writing phenomenal content, not just spitting something out in ChatGPT, although we can use AI together, let me know. And you can find me at authornationtube.com. All the contact information is there. You can also find me on, or find us on Instagram at Author Nation Tube. And I'm also on LinkedIn, Melody Owen. And feel free to reach out to me, and I'll give the links to Sean so you can put them in the description as well.
I will definitely add it into the description. Is there a platform that you frequent more often? Because I know some people, like I am on Instagram, but I am not on Instagram. And some people will send DMs to me and I will see them like a month later. And we started this me talking about my guilty conscience. I feel awful. Because I'm like, it could have been a time sensitive question. And I've had to tell people, don't try to reach out to me on Instagram. I'm there, but unless it sends me a notification, I won't see it.
Yeah. I'm never on Facebook.
Okay.
We have a group on Facebook, but somebody else runs that. I'm never on Facebook. LinkedIn is usually a pretty good place to find me for business, you know, for business. We do have an Instagram account, but again, I don't run the Instagram account. So I'm actually not a huge social media person.
Okay.
And so other people look after social media. People who love social media look
Yes.
after the Author Nation social media accounts. I look after my own LinkedIn account. And so if you have a question, LinkedIn is a really good place to reach me. If you do reach out to any, you know, Facebook or Instagram, and you're specifically looking for me, someone on the team will probably tell me. But if you want to make sure you get me, LinkedIn.
There you go. We basically have the same message. I will tell people, yes, you can reach out on Facebook, but if you send me a messenger there and I have to go through the changes to be able to go in to find it and all the rest of that, it's going to take me a minute. So if you have something time sensitive, just reach out on LinkedIn. I'll be able to get the proper notification there and be able to get back to you. So that is the feedback. Make sure that you reach out to, if you're trying to reach Melody Ann and you have a question that is time sensitive, go through LinkedIn. If it is more of a general question, then you can kind of go through the other platforms where you feel more comfortable, because I realize LinkedIn isn't for everybody. But if it is something time sensitive, there you go. I'll make sure that I have the link in the description and I will call it here. This has been nothing short of a pleasure as always. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
For the audience, I'll just say like, share, and subscribe. This again will be part of a series. I'll make sure that I keep you updated on what we're going to be rolling out. And then one extra caveat is this will also be being turned into a mini series. So every single talking point that we've covered is going to be more relevant to some people than others. So I'm going to break it up into pieces so that people can get the piece that they need. And it'll be easier to find, because whenever I do a podcast that's a little bit longer, I want to make it easier for people to find that golden nugget that they were looking for. And this is going to be one more way to be able to do that. So Melody Ann, it is a pleasure. Thank you so much. You're always such a pure joy. And we will see you next time. Thank you for tuning in to the Strategic Thinkers podcast. Remember, when you can make the inconvenient convenient, people are willing to pay you for the experience. The better the experience, the more they'll not only pay you, but help others pay you. Serving as brand champions. My name is Sean Atkinson, and I'm wishing you well on your journey to your definition of success. If you find this podcast interesting, helpful, worth a listen, like, share, and subscribe. Leave a positive review so people know to check it out, and I'll see you next time.